Imagine being told you're the most important person in the galaxy, that you're going to bring balance to an ancient mystical energy field that literally decides the fate of civilizations, and then immediately being handed off to a bunch of emotionally constipated space monks who treat you like a walking fire hazard. Yeah, that's not pressure at all. Now imagine being 9 years old, fresh off a traumatic childhood as a slave, and your first reward for winning a death-defying pod race is getting torn away from your mum and told that love is a liability. Like, congrats kid, you've unlocked trauma level 2. Now go sit quietly and suppress all your feelings while training to become a laser sword-wielding peacekeeper. It's wild how everyone around Anakin acted like he was already half Sith just because he had emotions. He shows fear, and suddenly Yoda's delivering one of his little doom speeches like a green fortune cookie. And meanwhile, Obi-Wan's over here winging it like a first-time substitute teacher with a lightsaber and no lesson plan. And let's not pretend the Jedi Council had their stuff together either. They were so busy being self-righteous and cryptic, they couldn't see the emotional wreck they were sculpting in real time. It's like they ordered a chosen one off the menu, but complained when it came with personality. And then there's Palpatine, the only guy in the room who treats Anakin like he actually matters. You know, the evil space wizard no one seems to notice is obviously evil. Anakin didn't just fall, he was practically shoved off a cliff by the people who claimed to be his guardians. And the worst part is, they didn't even realize they were doing it. They were so busy sticking to their sacred code that they forgot he was a person first and a prophecy second. Which, shocker, turned out to be a terrible strategy. In this video, we're diving headfirst into the disaster that was Anakin Skywalker's Jedi experience. From being emotionally neglected to becoming the galaxy's #1 cautionary tale, we're talking manipulation, hypocrisy, broken trust, and all the subtle ways the Jedi Order practically gift-trapped Darth Vader for the dark side. Because maybe the real tragedy isn't that Anakin turned. Maybe it's that nobody cared enough to stop him. Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One. The supposed galactic golden boy who was prophesied to bring balance to the Force. Sounds like a pretty big deal, right? But if he was so important, why did nobody seem to treat him that way? What if the whole idea of the Chosen One was less about destiny and more about control? Think about it. The Jedi find a literal child with more raw power than anyone they've ever seen, and their first response is to say, nope, too dangerous, go back to space daycare. Even Qui-Gon had to practically beg for Anakin to get a shot. And when he finally does get accepted, it's not with open arms, but with raised eyebrows and whispered doubts. From the start, the Jedi treat Anakin like he's radioactive. They don't nurture his gifts, they regulate them. He's not a prodigy, he's a potential problem. It's like giving someone the keys to a sports car and then yelling at them for driving too fast. They didn't want him to be great. They wanted him to be manageable. And sure, we can talk about how he was impulsive and emotional and had issues with attachment, but what kid wouldn't, after being taken from his mum, thrown into a monastic cult, and told that love is a liability? It wasn't just unfair, it was textbook emotional sabotage disguised as spiritual discipline. Okay, let's talk about how completely backwards the Jedi were with Anakin, because it's not just that they mishandled him, it's that they did it so consistently. It's like they were trying to make a villain out of him, and then acted surprised when it worked. They give him war, trauma, and isolation, then scold him for not being emotionally detached. They tell him to bury his feelings, and then act shocked when those feelings erupt like a Death Star core breach. It's the worst mentoring strategy in history. Master Yoda out here saying fear leads to anger like a Facebook fortune cookie, while ignoring a literal walking pressure cooker. And let's not forget Obi-Wan, who, by the way, was barely more than a Padawan himself when he got stuck babysitting the most powerful Force user since the gods got bored. The Council basically handed Obi-Wan a ticking Force nuke and said, good luck. And then when things went wrong, they blamed the bomb instead of the architects. The Republic wasn't any better. They knighted Anakin, gave him command of armies, and treated him like a military messiah. But behind his back, they never gave him real respect. He was a weapon, not a person. Palpatine was the only one who gave him praise. And gee, I wonder how that turned out. It's like watching someone slam a door over and over, and then act confused when the hinges break. The Jedi and the Republic didn't just fail Anakin. They built the system that broke him, and then wiped their hands clean when it all went to hell. There's something haunting about watching Anakin Skywalker slowly unravel. Not because he was doomed to fall, but because he was never given a real chance to rise. Every path he walked was paved with manipulation, isolation, and quiet betrayal. His bond with his mother, shattered by separation. His connection to Padma, hidden in shadows and fear. His friendship with Obi-Wan constantly strained by unspoken doubts and conflicting duty. And all the while, he was forced to pretend that none of it mattered. That love, grief, and longing were just distractions to be ignored. When his mother died in his arms, he didn't just lose her, He lost the last anchor he had to a life that made sense, and instead of helping him heal, the Jedi told him to forget, to let go, to move on, as if trauma just evaporates when you meditate hard enough. Even Padma, the one person who truly loved him, became a secret he had to guard like a ticking bomb. Their marriage wasn't a celebration, it was a burden he had to carry in silence. Every step he took toward vulnerability made him feel more alone. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Not that Anakin fell, but that he was already falling long before the armor and the breathing mask. He was crumbling inside a system that taught him to fear who he was, and punished him when he reached for anything real. Despite everything, Anakin Skywalker was incredible. Not just as a Jedi or a warrior, but as a person who still tried to do the right thing, even when the galaxy gave him every reason not to. And somehow, he kept fighting for a future he believed in. He led the 501st into battle, like a legend come to life. He saved Obi-Wan more times than anyone could count. He flew into impossible dogfights with a grin, and came out the other side with half a wing and a one-liner. He was chaos, charisma, and raw talent wrapped in a Jedi cloak. But more than that, he was human. Painfully, beautifully human. He wanted to protect those he loved. He wanted to stop people from suffering, and he wanted to be something more than what the Jedi let him be. Even if he didn't always know how to do it. And that humanity. That was the thing the Jedi never understood. They saw it as weakness, when it was actually his greatest strength. The thing that made him different, yes, but also the thing that made him matter, because he cared. Deeply, fiercely, recklessly. When you strip away the fear and the doctrine and the dogma, what's left is a man who just wanted to be seen, to be trusted, to be loved without condition. And that, in a galaxy full of masks and titles, made him something truly rare. And yet, through the fire and the fall and the fury, there's still a spark left in Anakin's story, because even at his lowest, something in him never fully died. The man inside the machine was still watching, still listening, still waiting. Luke saw it, that flicker of light behind the mask, the ghost of the boy who raced pods and wanted to free slaves. And by reaching out, Luke did what the Jedi never could. He believed in the man, not the monster, and gave Anakin a reason to believe in himself again. When Vader turned on the Emperor, it wasn't just redemption, it was revolution. A broken man choosing love over fear, sacrifice over power. It was the most human moment in all of Star Wars. And it mattered more because it came from someone who had once been so far gone. Anakin's legacy doesn't end in darkness, it ends in a choice. A choice to save his son, to break the cycle, and to prove that no one is ever beyond hope. Not even a fallen chosen one who once burned the galaxy to ash. That choice is what makes the story powerful. Not the prophecy, not the Force, not the lightsabers, but the idea that even when everything feels lost, redemption is still possible. If someone's willing to believe. But let's not pretend it was a happy ending. Because while Anakin was redeemed, the scars he left never really healed. The Jedi were gone, the Republic was dust, and the galaxy was still trying to make sense of what it had become. Anakin didn't get a parade. He didn't get forgiveness. He got a moment. A single powerful moment where he chose to be something better. And then he was gone, leaving behind a legacy as confusing as it was profound. The Jedi called him dangerous. The Sith called him useful. But no one ever really called him understood. And that might be the saddest truth of all, that the one person who could have changed everything was never given the space to just be himself. He wasn't the villain the galaxy deserved, or the hero it wanted. He was the mirror it refused to look into, a reflection of everything the Jedi feared, and everything they could have been if they'd let go of their fear and actually embraced compassion. In the end, the Chosen One was never broken by the dark side. He was broken by the people who were supposed to protect him. And maybe the Force didn't need balance. Maybe it just needed someone to finally care. Too bad that came far too late. Thank you for watching the whole video. I make videos because of my love for Star Wars and Marvel. I've been asked countless times how I get my subtitles, and I generate them automatically with a tool I built. That same tool can be used here on my website. It's completely free and doesn't require signing up. My website contains the subtitle generator that is perfect for any video. Blogging post, where you can sign up with your email and receive notifications for when I post, and also my 3 channels. Critical Analysis Hub focuses on Star Wars and Marvel movies. Critical Analysis Hub Plus looks at Star Wars and Marvel shows. And Critical Analysis Hub XP centers on video games, like The Last of Us series, Jedi Survivor, and GTA 5. Thank you for being a fan.